The torrential rain from earlier this week has prompted warnings the beaches are unsafe for swimming, and we're investigating just how bad the beach water quality is. Good afternoon. We're coming up on 2 days since the torrential rain fell in Toronto, and we now know that more than 1.3 billion liters of partially treated sewage water was flushed into the lake as the wastewater treatment plants were overwhelmed. CTV's City Hall reporter Natalie Johnson joins us live now with more on the situation. Natalie.
Hi, Michelle. Well, we know that anytime that there is significant rainfall in this city, E. coli levels in the lake grow, and then we see a 1 in 100-year storm like we did on Tuesday, and we know that there will be an effect on the contaminants in the lake and resulting water safety. According to Swim Drink Fish, who tests the water quality here, the resulting E. coli counts maxed out their charts on Tuesday. Thousands of counts of E. coli in any 100 milliliter sample in the water right now. This can be dangerous to humans and animals who are swimming in the contaminated beaches. There is a risk of waterborne illness, hepatitis, ear infections, eye infections, and gastrointestinal illness. Here is more from Swim Drink Fish on the issue here.
When we have combined sewer overflows or sewage bypasses, we are depositing sewage or partially treated sewage directly into our water, and that contains E. coli and other bacteria that's harmful to humans and to wildlife. It raises the nutrients in our water, it lowers the dissolved oxygen. It has tremendous implications for environmental health, but there's also a public health element. When our beaches are exposed to E. coli, we consider those beaches to be contaminated with bacterial contamination.
And as a result, many of the city's big beaches remain unsafe to swim, including Woodbine Beach, Marie Curtis, Sunnyside, Wards Island. The city does have a full list on its website letting you know whether or not it is safe to go into the water. Reporting live, I'm Natalie Johnson. Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. And last night, Hydro One confirmed it had resolved flooding and other issues with a transmission station in Toronto's West End that had prompted prolonged power outages for thousands of residents. Toronto Hydro's online map only highlighted 2 outages today, impacting 1 to 50 customers each. A big change from just a few days ago. Still to come this half hour, 2 deaths are now being reported after plant-based drinks were contaminated with listeriosis. We'll have the very latest on the situation coming up. But first, let's take a live look outside at our water and the island there in the airport. Quite dry today, some sunshine in the mix, and not too oppressive in terms of heat. Let's bring in Jessica Smith for more on this really kind of a nice stretch heading towards the weekend.
It is, and you can't go in the water right now, but it's great for the patios because we're kind of in that sweet spot where we're not dealing with a ton of humidity. So being out there is actually kind of nice. It was a little refreshing if you were up early on this morning, and that's thanks to high pressure really settling in and a change in wind direction. Sustained right now just around 24 kilometers an hour out of the northwest. Those gusts a little closer to 40, so there's a bit of a breeze out there, but again, it's just biting into that humidity, so we're just feeling the warmth. Temperature-wise, we're sitting at 19 here in the city, a bit of a fresher start to the day right around the Golden Horseshoe, between about 19 and 21 degrees. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast as we settle into the end of the week and we look ahead to the weekend. But right now, I'll send things back over to Michelle.
Thank you, Jess. And we're following breaking news out of Oshawa, where multiple vehicles appeared to have been involved in a crash. Durham Regional Police have confirmed they've closed the intersection of Town Line Road North at Nash Road for the investigation. Our CTV News chopper spotted multiple vehicles at the scene. We're trying to get more details there, but you can see what looks like an SUV, which is partially on the sidewalk there. At this stage, we're not clear if there are any injuries with regards to this crash, but we are gathering details and we'll share any new ones when we have them. Final preparations are underway in downtown Toronto for another staple of the city's cultural calendar. Get ready to hear the roar on the lakeshore as the annual Ontario Honda Dealers Indy speeds through the city this very weekend. The main race takes place on Saturday, but related events and attractions are on the schedule starting tomorrow. Road closures are already in place, prompting more than usual congestion on downtown streets. Strawn is closed from Fleet to Lakeshore, and Lakeshore is closed from Strawn to British Columbia Drive until 11 p.m. on Sunday. And take a look at this scene off Highway 401 in Whitby this morning. Our CTV News chopper got a look at a transport truck rollover on the ramp from the eastbound lanes to Brock Street. The Ministry of Transportation said the ramp could remain closed until early this afternoon. So far, no word on any potential injuries or just what led to this crash. Well, it's day 2 of a new round of bargaining between striking LCBO workers and the LCBO. There's no word on whether there's any progress at the table, but the fact that they're talking could potentially be a good sign. CTV's Beth McDonnell is following the story and has the very latest for us. Beth.
Yeah, Michelle, OPSU, the union representing LCBO workers, and the LCBO are continuing their talks right now inside the Sheraton Hotel after getting back to the table yesterday. Meanwhile, over in Whitby, there's a picket line, and outside the LCBO's distribution center, picketers appear to be delaying shipments. Earlier, a line of trucks could be seen stopped. At one point, picketers move, and a long hauler is able to get through. We have seen similar action at licensing facilities, one in Mississauga yesterday. And Michelle, we are nearing the 2-week mark of this strike. We're seeing some store shelves now that are looking pretty empty, and some bars are having trouble with their stock. A recent Leger poll found that 32% of respondents are now looking for alcohol elsewhere, with 49% of respondents saying they support the union's goal, and 29% saying they want the government to intervene immediately. We don't know how long these talks are continuing, if there is good news, but we are standing by, and the union says if there is an update, we will be notified immediately. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Michelle, back to you.
Good to know. Thank you, Beth. The North York Food Bank is looking for help after being hit by a flood, like so many others in the region. This is another casualty of that torrential rain we got in Toronto 2 days ago. CTV's John Musselman is following this story, and he joins us now live. What's the situation, John?
Well, Michelle, I'm in the loading dock area of the North York Harvest Food Bank. Now, here's the situation. They're telling us the water was filling up as high as the loading dock area, and it made its way into the warehouse, also from the roof. We'll show you some video this morning inside. They do have repair crews here. Some of the damage here was to the refrigeration units, so they lost a lot of product here that was set to be delivered to the community. So they were in dire straits here. The water was also coming in through the roof, and there wasn't a lot they could do. They struggled to try to move product away that could be saved, but a lot of it was damaged. We felt some of the boxes today. They're all, they're very wet and damp, and they just couldn't protect the product. So they're looking at about $50,000 worth of lost product here, and they're appealing to the public for some help. Here's what the executive director had to tell us just a short time ago.
Really proud of our team and all of the supporters at North York Harvest. We were able to maintain our deliveries on Tuesday. We were able to maintain our deliveries yesterday, and we're back to a regular schedule. But again, that food that we had to discard, that's an opportunity that's gone. And so, we'll be able to, and we're seeing support from our community to help us to make the repairs and to purchase the food to replace what was lost. But that's food that could have been helping people today that is not, is an opportunity that's gone.
And people are responding. A gentleman came in from the community with a $1,000 check. We also had a group from the Hindu Food Bank show up here with 1,000 pounds of rice. So people are responding to help out the North York Harvest Food Bank. Reporting live, I'm John Musselman. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, John. There's been historic change at the top of Canada's armed forces. For the first time, a woman is now in command of the military.
General Eyre, in passing the ensign to the Governor General, relinquishes his command to his superior. In turn, General Carignan, upon receiving the ensign from the Governor General, confirms her acceptance of her new command.
Lieutenant General Jenny Carignan is the new chief of the Defense Staff. She took over the role during a change of command ceremony at the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa this morning. Carignan was also promoted to the rank of general. She was also the first woman to command a combat unit in the Canadian military. Her career has included deployments to Syria, Bosnia, Iraq, and Afghanistan.
You've demonstrated time and time again the ability to lead with both strength and flexibility. In Afghanistan, you were deployed to head the Task Force Kandahar Engineer Regiment. In Iraq, you led NATO Mission Iraq to help strengthen Iraqi security institutions and forces to fight terrorism and stabilize the country.
Carignan takes over from General Wayne Eyre, who is retiring from the military this summer after 3 years in the top post. Labour Minister Seamus O'Regan is set to announce as early as today he will not run in the next federal election. Multiple Liberal sources also tell CTV News he will be quitting his cabinet position. The longtime Liberal is leaving politics for personal reasons, but he intends to stay on as an MP until the next election. Sources also say O'Regan informed the Prime Minister of his decision on Canada Day. This news comes amid the party's sustained slumping in public opinion polls and as speculation grows about a potential cabinet shuffle this summer. It's the final day of the Republican convention in Milwaukee, and tonight Donald Trump will take to the stage to address supporters and officially accept the nomination. Last night, it was Trump's new VP pick in the spotlight, introducing himself to the nation.
My fellow Americans and my fellow Republicans, my name is J.D. Vance from the great state of Ohio.
J.D. Vance is a relative political unknown who had been a fierce critic of Donald Trump. In his first primetime speech, Vance spoke of growing up poor and being raised by his grandmother, who he called his guardian angel. CTV's chief political correspondent Vashi Capellos spoke to CTV News Channel this morning about the speech.
Yeah, he made a pretty striking impression, I would say, on the audience. They were really eager to certainly hear what he had to say. I think they were also eager to hear that he supported Donald Trump because of course, his record of saying the exact opposite about 8 years ago. And he, the first part of his speech was essentially an ode to Donald Trump. Here are all the reasons why I support him. Here are all the reasons why you support him and why the rest of the American public should support him as well. And then it moved on, as you said, to sort of an autobiographical story. His story is a fascinating one. It's the basis of his memoir, best-selling memoir, you could say, Hillbilly Elegy, which was turned into a movie. It is really like the quote-unquote American dream, right? Born into an impoverished start with a mother who was addicted, raised by essentially a grandmother-like figure, and went on to Yale Law School. And just as I had kind of suspected, he certainly used that story to underscore the view that has been put out there on numerous occasions during this convention, which is Donald Trump is the best person to create the circumstances that will allow for my story to become your story. Joe Biden, on the other hand, as the Republicans would frame it, is doing the exact opposite. Obviously, the Democrats would counter that narrative and fight back against sort of that assertion. But that, if I were to take away anything from the past 3 days, underscored by Vance's speech, is the message that they are trying to send. And they are trying to deliver it to an audience much wider than the people in that room who already subscribe to everything that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump is saying. They're trying to convince people way outside of that room, those 500,000 swing voters, that economic narrative is an accurate one.
Meantime, as the Democrats navigate what you could call turbulent times, U.S. President Joe Biden has tested positive for COVID-19. Biden is experiencing mild symptoms. Doctors say Biden presented yesterday afternoon with upper respiratory symptoms, including a runny nose and a cough. He returned to Delaware, where he's said to be self-isolating and will continue carrying out his duties. Biden has been vaccinated and boosted. He says he feels good. American senators, meantime, have been told the gunman who shot at Donald Trump was flagged as being suspicious more than an hour before the shooting. 20-year-old Thomas Crooks was found with a fireworks detonator and had apparently scoped out the venue days before that rally.
The director of the Secret Service needs to go.
The Secret Service briefed lawmakers yesterday on their investigation. The agency is being raked over the coals for failing to protect the former U.S. president. And the U.S. presidential election and the possibility of a Trump win took center stage on the last day of the Premier's Conference in Halifax yesterday. It prompted a call among the leaders for Canada to increase defense spending sooner. CTV's Judy Trin reports.
The
The 13 premiers are all united in their calls for Canada to meet its 2% GDP NATO defence spending target as soon as possible as a way to safeguard the country's economic interests.
I think it's broader for Canada in its relationship with the United States. We're significant trading partners. And we want them to respect us.
Bonjour tout le monde. At last week's NATO summit, after mounting pressure from allies, the Prime Minister announced a 2032 date for reaching that obligation, too far away for premiers who want the date shortened from 8 years to 4.
I think the timeline we have to think about is the next administration, whoever that may be, in the United States of America. So let's hit that target in the next 4 years with a credible plan to do so.
The premiers have been watching Donald Trump's presidential race and his surge in momentum. They're concerned about a déjà vu. When Trump was first elected in 2016, he put in place an America First policy and slapped tariffs on Canadian exports, threatening the economy of each province.
We do $500 billion of trade. Ontario alone with the U.S. would be their third largest trading partner.
Earlier this year, Trump reiterated his position that the U.S. would not defend any allies that didn't meet the NATO obligation. Currently, Canada's annual defense budget is around $30 billion. Getting to 2% could require $15 billion more a year.
In a what is a very unrestful world, we're seeing conflicts in Eastern Europe and in other areas of the world that I think that the investment is necessary.
The premiers say, regardless of who gets elected, Donald Trump or Joe Biden, Canada should meet its NATO targets. Back here in Canada, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is not committing to meeting the NATO target should he become the next Prime Minister. Judy Trin, CTV News, Halifax.
Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister is headed to China. In a statement, Mélanie Joly says as the world faces increasingly complex and intersecting global issues, Canada is committed to engaging pragmatically with a wide range of countries to advance our national interests and uphold our values. We must maintain open lines of communication and use diplomacy to challenge where we ought to, while seeking cooperation in areas that matter most to Canadians. Beijing extended an invitation to Joly for in-person talks. It has recently been urging Canada to work on shared priorities and draw less attention to disagreements. To health news now, and some sad news linked to that recent recall of a number of plant-based milks. A recall was ordered for a range of silk and great value products earlier this month, citing concerns about contamination by listeriosis. Well, now Ontario's Ministry of Health says 2 deaths in this province have been linked to this outbreak. At least 12 lab-confirmed cases of listeriosis have been reported across Canada, but the vast majority are here in Ontario. Let's bring in CTV's Scott Hurst, who's been following this story. Scott, heartbreaking to learn 2 people have lost their lives as a result of this. What more do we know about the outbreak at this stage and where people have been affected?
And Michelle, 10 overall cases have been reported in Ontario. You touched on the 2 deaths there, but there are fears by the Public Health Agency of Canada that there could be more illnesses to come as this list of total lab-confirmed cases may continue to grow. So let's run down what we know so far. 12 overall lab-confirmed cases, 10 in Ontario, including those 2 deaths in this province confirmed by the Ontario Ministry of Health, 1 case in Quebec and 1 case in Nova Scotia. 9 of those cases sending people to hospital, all between last August right up until this month. And according to the Public Health Agency of Canada, the people who've become sick, it's quite a large age range, all the way from 37 to 89 years old. And here are the signs and symptoms to watch out for as well, including vomiting, nausea, persistent fever, muscle aches, severe headache, and neck stiffness. This outbreak may not be limited to the provinces with the known illnesses, which is why there's concern and fear that more infections are to come, because the recalled plant-based beverages, Michelle, were distributed nationally, not just in these few provinces.
You hope by now anybody who has these products in their fridge has thrown them out. What's the latest on the recall linked to the illnesses?
The investigation is ongoing, but you touched on the products that were recalled, and several Silk and Great Value branded milk alternatives made from nuts, oats, and coconuts. They've all been recalled, and that was earlier this month. And so the investigation into the recall is ongoing. Most of the recalled products have best before dates up to and including October 4th. And the Canadian Food Inspection Agency ultimately is warning contaminated products may not look or smell spoiled, but they can still make you sick, which is why it is so imperative, Michelle, that if you still have these products in your fridge, your best advice is to check the best before date. And if you are unsure about any of it, throw it out or bring it back to the retail store, Michelle.
When in doubt, throw it out.
Exactly.
CTV's Scott Hurst live for us in the CTV National Newsroom. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Take care. As Canada's athletes prepare for the Summer Olympic Games, Toronto's own Summer McIntosh is already one of the country's most accomplished swimmers at just 17 years old. She weighed in today on what she's hoping to achieve in Paris.
I think when it comes to an Olympic Games, it's not so much about the time as it would be for other swimmers. It's more about how your placement and position, of course. So obviously, that's always a goal. That's the whole basis of the sport. But at the same time, I'm really just focused on myself and all the things that I can do to prepare as best as possible for all my races and things I can do, like I said earlier, in between to recover from my previous race. So just trying to stay in the moment and try to execute as best as possible is really what I'll think success will look like for me.
And while she didn't come home with any medals in Tokyo, in Paris, McIntosh is competing in 4 individual events, starting with the 400-meter freestyle on day 1 of the Games next Friday. Won't be long now, Jess.
I know, I can't wait. And as we prepare, we're going to focus on today. And that's the fact that the forecast is fantastic. After such a humid end to the day after that soaker, when it came to that pretty intense system, we're holding on to a bit of a cooler forecast. A northwesterly wind biting into some of that humidity. So although we'll see daytime highs today, tomorrow below seasonal, when you add in that hint of a humidex, it puts us in that sweet spot right where we should be for this time of year, around 27 degrees. Coming up, I'll have a full look at your long-range forecast, including what you can expect as we step into the weekends.
Well, we're into a really nice stretch of weather. I think today, for folks who don't like it when it's really steamy hot, this is kind of nice. This morning, I thought it felt comfortable. We had the sunshine, and it wasn't too oppressive at all.
Right, when you walk out the door, there wasn't that like 1-2 punch of heat. And I'm an early riser, and I got up this morning, and I didn't need a layer, but if it was there, I wouldn't have been upset. It's just one of those like fresher mornings, but it is nice. It's been so hot, especially after all that rain. Temperatures really soared as we made our way in towards that afternoon on Tuesday, and it was really hot yesterday, so we're kind of settling into a bit of a below seasonal but comfortable trend. Weather is brought to you by the Presler Law Firm. Injury lawyers, you don't pay unless they win. More sunshine, though, to start the day today, and beautiful if you are going for a walk this afternoon, heading out on a patio, maybe heading off early for an extra long weekend. But we are going to see temperatures start to return to a more seasonal point as we head in towards your Friday, your Saturday, and your Sunday. Taking a look at our temperature map, really right across the province, it's quite comfortable. We're sitting at 20 degrees right now. We're a little cooler. If you step outside, you notice that bit of a breeze, a northwesterly flow helping to kind of bite some of that initial stickiness when you walk outside. But really right across the province, it's a beautiful and very comfortable kind of midpoint to our day. Into the afternoon, we'll only really climb to about 23, but you factor in the humidex and it will feel closer to the normal, which is 27. So we really do kind of average out in a beautiful way as we head throughout the day, but a higher UV index. So make sure sun protection, hydration, all those things you guys know about to stay safe. But really right across southern Ontario, we're in the low to mid 20s as we get throughout the day today. But when you factor in the humidex, we're in the mid to upper 20s. Tonight, we are below seasonal, sitting at 14. It is cooler, but maybe more comfortable for sleeping, as Michelle mentioned. If you don't love that real heavy heat, these next couple of days are for you. And everybody across the board a little cooler. Single digits, though, tonight through Goderich, Waterloo, and Bancroft. As we head throughout the day today, there's not a lot going on. That last trough that brought those few little trickling showers yesterday, it's gone, and we're holding on to high pressure really for the next almost like 4 to 5 days. So there's not much to see in your forecast radar picture, but that's maybe a good thing after all of that rain. I know a lot of people are still cleaning up. We're looking at just a beautiful sunny day start to finish. No real cloud cover as we head through the overnight. And then into the day tomorrow, even more sunshine as we kind of wrap up the work week. And maybe you're heading off early to the cottage. It will be a beautiful forecast, really anywhere across central, southern, and northern Ontario. Stepping into the weekend, a few light clouds make their way in, but overall it is going to be comfortable. It is going to be dry, and we're looking at a really beautiful stretch as we kind of step in towards this midpoint of the month. Temperature-wise, it is below seasonal today, tomorrow, but again, you sprinkle in that humidex, just a little bit of it, and it really kind of meets us in the middle where we should be for this time of year. Overnight lows get back to where they should be as we head in towards the end of the week and look ahead to the weekend. Saturday, it's hot, it's sunny, a fantastic day to spend some time outside, but again, with all that perfect kind of sun protection in place. And then as we step in towards next week, we hold on to temperatures at a very seasonal mark. And again, it is dry, which I'm sure be something that is welcomed by a lot of folks. Michelle.
That's for sure. Thank you, Jess.
Thanks.
Well, the weather might be sunny, but there have been dark days for homeowners. I'm talking about those whose basements are filled with floodwaters. We draw your attention now to a Burlington neighborhood where the cleanup after Tuesday's torrential rain is far from over. CTV's Scott Lightfoot reports.
On the ground floor of this Burlington backsplit, you can see on the curtains just how high the floodwaters got yesterday. Most of that water has receded, leaving behind a muddy mess. But one floor lower, and it's a different story.
We don't know what's going to happen with our house. We don't know if it can be fixed or if it's just a rebuild totally.
Along Cavendish Drive, this was an all too familiar sight. A nearby creek overflowed its banks during Tuesday's storm. A dozen homes quickly flooded with dirty brown water. In this home, the backyard swimming pool, now a similar color.
It is absolutely devastating.
Burlington's mayor came to see the damage. The city declared a level 2 emergency to deal with the flood.
The anxiety that you must be feeling, the concerns that you must be feeling for your family, for your property, for your investment. My heart goes out to all of you.
Because last time I had 4.5 feet of water in my basement. This time I have I don't know, like a foot of water in the basement.
It's a similar scene in Toronto's Rockcliffe neighborhood where homeowners were cleaning up all day.
The mold and the disgustingness of the water and all those issues, you know, you're like, well, I need to get this properly cleaned and taken care of so that my house is still livable.
Neighbors here have been trying to help each other out since the water started to rise. In this home, the sheer amount of water that got inside managed to lift and topple a fridge and damage just about everything else in its path.
I was literally shocked, disbelief. It was like a movie.
Because flood mitigation work has been delayed in this particular area of Toronto, residents are eligible for up to $7,500 from the city for damage compensation. Others aren't so lucky. And as for home insurance,
a typical homeowner's insurance policy doesn't cover damage caused by sewer backup or flood. It only covers, water caused by a burst pipe or something like that in your home.
as the cleanup begins, so too do those insurance claims. The Insurance Bureau of Canada says it could take a month and a half to total up the damage caused by yesterday's flooding, damage that could exceed $1 billion.
Scott Lightfoot, CTV News.
Still to come on CTV News at noon, Taylor Swift has been able to tame inflation in the UK. We'll explain after this short break. Health officials call it an epidemic. Last year, Toronto saw 523 deadly opioid overdoses. Toronto's drug checking service is part of the harm reduction strategy to address the problem. And CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan got an inside look at their lab.
Within the busy lab that processes all the samples at St. Michael's Hospital is Toronto's drug checking service.
We provide an essential public health service to individuals in the community, allowing them to submit a small amount of their drug to be checked and to understand what's in it. And then they receive results along with tailored strategies to reduce harm.
They also provide a big picture to health and government officials of the current state of the unregulated drug market. And these days, the focus is on fentanyl, or what's masquerading as fentanyl.
When it comes to other drug types, we are seeing that those have remained quite stable, like cocaine, methamphetamine, that type of thing. But with fentanyl in particular, what we're seeing is that it almost never meets service users' expectations. So generally speaking, there are many other drugs that are being cut into the fentanyl that increase the risk of overdose.
Toronto's drug checking service began in 2019, and since then it's checked more than 13,000 samples. Last year, additional funding allowed the lab to begin testing samples from almost twice as many collection sites, 11 up from 6 harm reduction centers. They can test drug equipment, such as cookers or foils, as well as the drugs themselves. The sophisticated process usually takes about 24 hours, but some less accurate machines can do basic assessments in minutes. Many of the contaminants are high-potency opioids, but Karen McDonald is concerned about the newer additions that affect the central nervous system.
Things like benzodiazepine-related drugs, veterinary tranquilizers such as xylazine and medetomidine, which you may have heard about.
And even fentanyl use itself is declining.
And what's worrisome about that is that fluorofentanyl is stronger than fentanyl. It's considered to be up to 2 times stronger.
Making it even more important to keep a close eye on the unregulated drug market in Ontario. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Taylor Swift's Eras Tour is taking the blame for keeping inflation flat in the UK. Economists had expected it to drop last month, but it turns out Swifties who came in from out of town and overseas had hotels and restaurants raking it in. CTV's Alison Bamford reports.
A moment worth traveling overseas just to see.
It was 3 hours of solid entertainment and a really good atmosphere.
Haley Cattell flew to Europe last month for the Eras Tour. Her entire 2-week trip, she estimates, cost what some fans will pay for a weekend to see Taylor Swift in Canada later this year.
We were able to find rooms in a hostel that were honestly comparable to any hostel or traveler hostel that you can find in Europe.
She may be one of the lucky ones. New reports out of the UK show hotel prices jumped nearly 9% in the month of June when Swift performed 10 nights across the United Kingdom. Some economists believe the price increase led to the UK's inflation rate flatlining at 2% last month instead of falling like some expected.
It's highly likely it's a temporary bump.
Last summer, Swift was credited with single-handedly boosting the hotel industry in the United States.
Welcome to the Eras Tour.
The Canadian industry hopes for similar numbers when the megastar visits Toronto in November.
It's definitely going to be a huge opportunity in a time of the year when there isn't as much going on from a business perspective.
Based on her U.S. stops, the association expects the 6 concert dates to inject more than $50 million into the economy, a potential boost so big others are practically begging Swift to come to their cities.
Citywide rebrand.
Swift Current Saskatchewan hopes its shared name will entice the singer and her following to tour the community.
Probably temporarily change the name of the city for a day or two to Taylor Swift Current or just Taylor Swift.
Swift is set to close out her tour in Vancouver in December. Hotel prices already skyrocketing there for tens of thousands of Swifties expected to visit. Alison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
The Emmy nominations have been revealed, honoring this year's Best in Television. Historical drama Shogun has the most nods with 25, but The Bear is not far behind.
Doors.
Refire! It's not perfect.
The beloved FX series about a struggling chef and his kitchen crew scored 23 nominations, a record for comedies. The Bear got 13 nominations last year. As for Shogun, it's competing for Best Drama in its first season. It's up against Fallout and the final installment of The Crown. The awards will be handed out September 15th. There were a few other milestones with the nominations. Kaylee Reese and Lily Gladstone made Emmys history as the first 2 Indigenous women nominated in acting categories. Reese is in the running for Best Supporting Actress in a limited series for her role in HBO's True Detective Night Country, while Gladstone is up for her role in Hulu's Under the Bridge. And some big achievements for Selena Gomez in the Emmy noms as well. She's received her first acting nomination for her role in Only Murders in the Building. What's more, she made history for her work as an executive producer for the series. Her 3rd consecutive nomination for Outstanding Comedy Series makes her the most nominated Latina producer in Emmys history. Some big news for Marvel fans as the company sets out the next stages of its Avengers movie franchise.
We owe this to everyone who's not in this room.
According to The Hollywood Reporter, Joe and Anthony Russo, who directed several other Avengers films, including Endgame and Infinity War, may be coming back to helm another 2 installments of the superhero movie series. The report said they're in early talks for those projects, which would hit theaters in 2026 and 27. The Russo's spokesperson declined to comment.
If you think for a second that I am scared to put a bullet in your brain,
You don't know me.
Also potentially heading to the big screen, a feature film adaptation of 24. The smash hit TV series ran for 8 seasons between 2001 and 2010. Each season saw a day play out in real time. Variety reports a sequel film is in the works. It's still not known if Kiefer Sutherland will return to star. In sports, the Toronto Raptors will host a preseason game in Montreal as part of the NBA Canada series. The game is taking place October 6th at the Bell Center as the Raptors celebrate their 30th season. The Washington Wizards are the opponent. It will be the 8th time Toronto has played a preseason game in Montreal. Last year they were in Vancouver. The NBA Canada series debuted in 2012. Still to come on CTV News, we've got new stats on condo sales, and they've been the slowest in decades.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
You may have heard it's been a dismal period for condo sales across the GTA. Now a new survey of the market for the first half of 2024 is offering some insight into just how historic this slowdown has been. Urbanation shared its market survey for the second quarter of the year, showing just under 3,200 new condos were sold in the GTA. That marked a 57% decline compared to a year before and capped off the slowest half of a year for condo sales since 1997. Condo resales were also well below the 20-year average. Analysts say buyers are likely waiting on the sidelines for more interest rate drops, while sellers are reluctant to drop prices after paying higher costs at the peak. Beaten up tech stocks rallied in early trading, but markets slipped again later in the morning. Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg brings us the latest in business.
Hello there. Here are your business headlines. Investors in big technology are still nervous. U.S. markets were down today as major players such as Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon sold off. Earlier, chip stocks rose after Taiwan Semiconductor provided an upbeat forecast. But the threat of more U.S. clampdowns on China's access to technology is weighing on the market. Ford Motor will invest $3 billion U.S. to build its highly profitable Super Duty F-Series pickup truck in Oakville, Ontario, after previously delaying plans for an electric sport utility vehicle. Ford CEO Jim Farley said, quote, "Super Duty is a vital tool for businesses and people around the world, and even with our Kentucky truck plant and Ohio assembly plant running flat out, we can't meet the demand." And finally, the world's biggest meat and dairy companies have been accused of failing to address the environmental impact of their livestock and also impeding the climate fight. The Changing Markets Foundation, which says it runs campaigns that, quote, shift market share away from unsustainable products and companies, argues that meat and dairy sellers are borrowing from the fossil fuel and tobacco playbook to derail climate action. Livestock is estimated to account for just under 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions. That's the latest in business. I'm Andrew Bell of BNN Bloomberg.
And as you heard from Andrew there, Ford Motor Company announcing plans to assemble an additional class of vehicles at its Oakville assembly plant as it prepares for electric vehicle production. The plant is being retooled to allow for EV production, an effort Ford says will cost $1.8 billion. However, the opening date was delayed from 2025 to 2027. Well, today the company said it will assemble its F-Series Super Duty pickup trucks in Oakville starting in the summer of 2026. And we're joined now by Unifor National President Lana Payne. Lana, great to have you on once again. I recall we talked back in April amid the decision to delay production. Since then, I know you've been looking for a solution to avoid your members essentially being laid off for, what was it, 3 years? So talk to us about the solution you've come up with and what it means for the workers.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. This is a very huge day for our members in Oakville, but also great news with this new plan that Ford Motor Company has announced and we've been working on for many months now for our members in Windsor as well. And it's going to provide secure employment and it's going to provide a good future for thousands of workers in the Oakville area.
So let's talk a bit more about that. We're talking about getting the workers back to work sooner, and there are job protections built into this.
Yes, absolutely. So, you know, in April, it was a pretty dim day when we got the news around the extended delay for EV production. And of course, any plant being down and not producing vehicles for a period of 3 or 4 years is very challenging and put us in, I believe, a pretty precarious spot. So our goal here was to work with Ford Motor Company to say, this isn't acceptable. We need a new plan for Oakville, and our members deserve that. Their work is a testament to having a different kind of investment and a different plan, and a testament to the company. They worked with us to do this, and we're looking at a completely different future right now for Oakville, which is very, very good news.
Might there be new jobs as well in addition to this job security?
Yes. The other thing we bargained, of course, is to make sure that during the retooling period, our members have income security measures to protect them and to protect their incomes until the plant is up and running. Some of this retooling work will start almost immediately. So that's also encouraging because people in Oakville get to see that this is a tangible thing. It's happening. And by 2026, the goal here is we'll be producing trucks. And then also we have security in terms of an electrified version of this truck down the road. So giving the plant more flexibility, which means more job security for our members.
Before we let you go, you're so tapped in as a union head to the automotive world. And it's such an interesting time as we are in the midst of a transition to battery electric vehicles. What is the state for auto workers at this point?
I mean, the reality is we've had $60 billion plus invested in the auto sector in the last 3.5 years. We have had a great response from both the federal government and the Ontario government in terms of supporting this industry. And, you know, the footprint is growing in Canada. And this announcement by Ford Motor Company today means that we have a more diversified footprint in Canada going forward. So it's very good news, and we just got to keep the momentum going here.
Well, sure is nice to get some good news. Unifor National President Lana Payne, thanks for joining us and helping us understand this. Appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Michelle.
And coming up on CTV News, a first look at some Amur tigers, courtesy of a zoo in Germany. We'll have that after this short break. Well, we've been reporting the U.S. is rolling out more red tape for Canadians who want to bring their dogs across the border. The rules will change August 1st, and there's a longer list of requirements that may deter some Canadians from traveling with their pets. Although, as CTV's Sarah Plowman reports, some rules have eased amid talks with Canada. Hey, come on up.
Shamrock goes wherever his owner does. In a few weeks, he'll head to Maine to shop.
Yeah, you got to come to the States with us, buddy.
As of August 1st, they'll have to pack paperwork for the dog. Starting then, dogs entering the U.S. will have to be at least 6 months old, have a universally readable microchip, appear healthy, and have documents, including a U.S. Centers for Disease Control form receipt and an export document that includes proof of rabies vaccination, microchip, and is signed by a Canadian veterinarian.
I think it's too much. Valuable resources are being used up to check our dogs.
U.S. authorities argue the rules will help stop the spread of rabies. Ottawa has been in talks with their U.S. counterparts, and today the health minister noted some rules have eased, but not far enough.
What am I asking for? An exemption. I've been very clear with the Secretary. I think Canada should be exempt as a country that is not a source country for rabies.
Some have tweaked travel plans. Cisco's owners will go to the States before August 1st to avoid any trouble.
The changes seem a bit abrupt and pretty kind of, forced.
The New Brunswick Medical Veterinary Association wants dog owners to plan ahead.
Please don't panic. And please have patience, because we're navigating this too.
Minister Holland says he's waiting for confirmation of a grace period.
Where folks are given a warning at the border for the first couple of months.
While dog owners add, call the vet to their to-do list.
A spokesperson for the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Protection tells me they are aware of concerns, value feedback, and are working with both federal and international partners to discuss it. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
From dogs to two rare big cats making their public debut in Germany today. Visitors to a zoo in Cologne had a chance to see these Amur tigers' cubs for the very first time. The female and male were born in mid-April and now weigh about 13 kilograms each. Amur tigers are also known as Siberian tigers. They're found in the far east of Russia and northeastern China. They are considered endangered. 240 Amur tigers in zoos are currently part of a European program to help conserve and breed these beautiful animals. Lovely.
Baby animals are a great way to end any show, and so is a good forecast.
Never gets old.
You know what I
Give us the animals, now we get the nice forecast.
It's a beautiful day. We have that northwesterly wind, which would typically be cooler or cold, depending on the time of year, but in the summertime, it really bites into a lot of that humidity. So as you step outside today, it's quite comfortable. We're looking at a light breeze now. It gets even lighter as we head into the afternoon and evening. And there's almost nothing going on in the satellite and radar picture, which is a good thing after all of that rain earlier this week. Still sitting around 20 degrees here in the city, but you know what? As we head in towards the end of the week, if you're going to a cottage, it looks pretty good.
Ooh, how wonderful. I love it. Thank you so much, Jess. Thanks. That's it for CTV News at noon. Remember, you can get Toronto's breaking news all day long on CP24 and at our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca. For Jess Smith and the whole team behind the scenes here, have a pleasant afternoon. I'm Michelle Dubé, and hope to see you later for CTV News at 5 and 6.